What's up everybody, hello and welcome back to Gaming 101 with Mr. Berger. Now, first things first, you probably noticed that I sound a little bit more clear, a little bit more crisp. I actually invested about 22 bucks and got a nice little mic on Amazon. It was cheap and gets the job done. It's just a USB mic, and I'm liking it so far, so let me know what you guys and gals think. If I sound a lot better, if it makes a good difference. I know that one of my viewers recommended a better mic, so let's see how it goes. Alright, so tonight we're going to take a look at the Sudden Death deck for the Sudden Death Challenge that is currently going on. Now, it took me about 5 tries to get my challenge completed. Now this is a 9-win challenge. Most challenges standard are about 12, right? That's the standard classic and grand challenge. But some of them are, custom. So this is one of the ones that's custom and has a custom win bracket, or win number, right? So you need 9 wins to complete the challenge, and you get 10 instances of an epic card, if I'm not mistaken. So you don't need to worry about winning all 12. It's a little bit easier. It's a little bit less pressure. It only costs 10 gems to enter, and your first entry is free. So get on it. You get a nice chest even if you lose all your matches. So check it out. It's pretty fun. And you can go 9 wins with this deck. I did manage to go 9 wins with this deck. So as I'm running all these replays in the background here, you'll notice I have them numbered. That's because I've got about 20 of them. Because these battles go really quickly. Sometimes they drag on a little bit longer, but the whole point of the challenge is that you just kill 1 tower and the game's over, and you get double elixir. So you kind of want to surprise your enemy and try to get them with some sort of like a gimmick, something that just does a ton of damage all at once before they have time to react. And that's the whole point behind this deck. So let's go through each card. I'm going to be running replays in the background. A lot of them are wins, and quite a few of them are losses as well, so you can see where I went wrong. Towards the end here, what I'm going to do is show all the matches that I did in my last challenge run that allowed me to get the 9 wins. So we'll see how much time it takes to get through the cards and see how many replays I actually want to run through, if I'm going to run through all 20. So, let's start with the cheap cycle cards. On the bottom left there of the deck, you have your Ice Spirit and you have your Ice Golem. Now these two are cycle cards so that you can get the combo of whatever you need to win the match out onto the field. So what your win condition in this deck is the Balloon and the Ice Golem. So although the Ice Golem is a cycle card, he's also a big part of your win condition because he's a cheap mini tank that tanks for the blue. So you can use those two defensively. You can also use them to support your push. Generally what you're going to do with this deck is go for one big push initially, catch them off guard, right? And they won't know what to do. Alright, let's watch the next replay. And they don't have time to react, and before they know it, they're dead. So there's not too much like defensive counter push going on. That being said, you do have one defensive counter push card, and that's the Lumberjack. He's your main kind of counter push card. He plays an interesting role in this too. I know that I've said in the past that the Rage is just like an added bonus from the Lumberjack, but it plays a pretty great and vital role in this deck. So when the Lumberjack dies, he drops Rage, right? And he also synergizes really well with the clone. I'll get to that in a little bit. So, card replacements. Let's talk about replacements for the cycle cards first, and then I'll get back to the Lumberjack and why he's so great. So, the 2 cycle cards, I think that what we call it, the Ice Golem is pretty vital, right? Because he combos really well with your Balloon, which is your main win condition. If you have to replace him with something, maybe a Knight or another tank like a Giant or even a Golem, that does change the kind of archetype of your deck, but that's what I would go for. For the Ice Spirit, you would want to replace him with something real cheap. Something like Bats or Skeletons, another cycle card to get your win condition out there more. For the Lumberjack, as I mentioned, his Rage effect is usually an added bonus, but in this deck it's pretty vital. So you could replace him with Rage if you don't have it, or you could replace him with a defensive counter push card. His obvious replacement would be Mini P.E.K.K.A. Alright, let's move on to the next one here. This is going to be a loss, so let's see where I went wrong. So if you want to replace him with something else, let's see. Probably something hard-hitting, you do like a Bandit for fun. but I would really replace him with like a Mini P.E.K.K.A. or a Rage. If you don't have any of those, just some cheap support cards, you know, some Goblins or Guards or Archers. So what about that Mega Minion? Well, Mega Minion is definitely a flex spot. I just did it because I net decked this deck. So Mega Minion is what they're running online, and a lot of people run the same deck in this current meta for this challenge, and this is what they're running. Of course, you could replace it with quite a few things, because it's not very vital in this deck. Obvious replacements would be minions. They're a little bit more susceptible to, you know, zap and arrows and stuff. Mega Minion's definitely beefier, but, you know, again, he's not super vital in this deck. You could also replace it with just about any, like, cheap support card. Archers, Musketeer are the obvious go-tos, and just about everybody has them. You know, of course, if you have, like, Ice Wizard or Electro Wizard, that would be great in that spot, too. The Electro Wizard is a great defensive counter-push card, so he could take the role of either the Lumberjack or the Mega Minion, if you have it. Okay, how about that Balloon? So the Balloon, you don't want to replace the Balloon with anything. I'm sorry, but if you want to replace the Balloon with something, this isn't the deck that you're going to be running. Of course, you could argue that you could run, you know, other win conditions. You could put a Golem or a Hog or something in there, but the whole point of this deck is the synergy between the Balloon and your spells. Everything else synergizes with it a little bit, especially the Lumberjack, but that's like the main synergy that wins you this game and these matches. So that was my loss. Let's go ahead and run another replay. So Balloon flies in. You combo him with your Ice Golem. You put the Ice Golem down, and then half a second later or less, you put the Balloon down right on the same spot or just to the right of it, so that it flies in right behind the Ice Golem. Thus the Ice Golem will tank the Princess Tower for the Balloon. See what I did right there? I dropped the Ice Golem in the replay, and then I dropped the Balloon just to the right of it. If you can get the Lumberjack in there as well, it works wonders. And then of course you combo it with your spells. I froze it, excuse me, and then what did I do? I cloned, and the tower just disappeared. He put down his Golem, he didn't have time to react, and that was that. Okay, next one. So the Balloon, probably not replace it with anything. The only thing that I was thinking of, or the two things I was thinking of, were other things that synergize with Clone, if you want to go with everything else in the same spots here. I guess you could replace the Balloon with like a giant skeleton, or a skeleton barrel, just because those things play similar roles in that they have very powerful death damage effects. Now, why are death damage effects so important in this deck? I like calling them death rattle effects, or death rattles, because I play Hearthstone too. That's what they call it in that game. Well, let's talk about all your three spells. Clone. Clone is very stable in this deck. Clone and Freeze too. But I think Clone even more so, personally, because the Clone has insane potential with the Balloon. If you know what a Balloon does, it flies up slowly to the enemy tower, or enemy building I should say. It'll get distracted by towers, defensive towers like cannons or Teslas or Inferno towers, so watch out for those. And if it makes it to the enemy Princess Tower, it drops his big old bomb and explodes and does like a third of the tower's health. An insane amount. Now, on top of that, the Balloon has a death rattle. When he dies, he drops a bomb and it explodes a second later. And it does a good amount of damage too. Only a couple hundred at this level, but that's still decent enough. Now the Clone spell will clone all the units that are in the affected area. It'll summon little copies of them that are lower level and that die almost instantly from any shot. Of course, they also trigger their death rattle effect. So if you clone the Balloon, or the Ice Golem, or the Lumberjack, or all three, which all have death rattle effects, all of their clones will eventually die and also trigger their death rattle effects. So the Balloon, when the Balloon dies, he drops his little bomb. If you clone him, his clone will also drop the bomb when it dies. And it'll probably die right away, or very soon, unless you win the match, because again, it dies in like one hit from anything. Of course, as I mentioned, the Balloon drops his bomb, his main auto attack first before he dies, and that does like a third of the tower's health. So if you can get a clone off with the Balloon, the clone doesn't do quite as much damage, but it still does a ton. So the clone Balloon will do a good like half of the tower's health. At least, you know, if not more, right? And then both of those Balloons will die, and they'll drop their bombs, and that's GG. Their tower's dead. You basically need like one balloon hit from the regular balloon and one from the clone balloon, and then just a little bit of extra damage from like a few arrows. You can always cycle arrows, or if you have a Lumberjack or even your Ice Golem or something in there, that death damage from the Ice Golem might give you enough damage to finish off their tower. If you can get 2 auto attacks in from the balloon and like a 3rd or 4th from the clone, then the tower's just gone, and you'll probably see that in replays if you haven't seen it already. Now what about the arrows and the freeze? Well, let's talk about the arrows really quickly. The arrows I think are a flex spot. I think that they work really well with this deck because as you just saw there, you can see minion hordes and stuff like that a lot, and that's what they're probably going to try to use to counter your balloon. So if you have arrows, it instantly, well not instantly, but it will completely take out their minion horde and minions and all that, whereas zap will just bring them to half health, which is great for playing defensive and counter pushing. But in this deck, that's not what you're doing. In this deck, in this particular challenge, you're trying to push as hard as you can. You're trying to go for one big push right away, catch them off guard, and blow them up with your balloon. So that's why I think that the arrows are a little bit better option. I could definitely say you could replace them with a fireball, a poison, or even have some fun with a rocket, because you got double elixir in this deck, right? I'm sorry, not in this deck, in this challenge, when you're playing this deck or any deck in this challenge, because it's the sudden death challenge. So you could definitely place a rocket in there because you got tons of elixir. Alright, what about the freeze? Now freeze synergizes really well. Oh, I died, guys. Look at that, look at the replay. He ran almost the exact same deck, if not the exact same deck as me, and he just managed to get his like Ice Golem and Balloon out further. Let's look at that. It looks like he is running the exact same deck, except he has bats instead of Mega Minion. So there's an obvious replacement. It beat me, right? And the only reason he won, I think, is because he got his stuff out quicker than I did. So again, I didn't have enough to even counter push him in my deck, right? There's no way I could counter push because I don't have enough to counter that balloon. My only air hitting units are the Mega Minion, and then the Ice Spirit, which hardly counts, and the arrows, which hardly count. You could say that like the death damage from the balloon or the Ice Golem does damage to air units, but I mean that's viewable against like Minion Horde. The death damage from the Ice Golem is great against Minion Horde, but that's about it, right? Swarm units like that. So he got his balloon and Ice Golem out first, and I just didn't get mine to the tower in time. You know, you saw that I had the cloned everything, and I was about to blow up his tower, but he blew up my tower first. Now in that case, I caught him off guard in this current replay, and just blew his tower up. And that's kind of what you want to do. So it's pretty obvious what the role of the freeze is then, right? The freeze, you use it, you want to time it really well though, so let's talk about that, because that's important, I think. And you could replace the freeze with a lot of different things, but that's a big part of this deck as well, is that combo between the balloon, the clone, and the freeze. So you don't want to just like freeze the enemy princess tower as your balloon's walking up, unless you know that you've got an elixir advantage, which is going to be rare in this case because you're going for one big push right away, right? What you want to do is, look how I froze it right there. I waited a few seconds. I waited until all of his stuff was within range of the freeze. And, you know, the Inferno Dragon was charging up, so it wasn't doing much damage yet, so there's no need to freeze it right away. The archers hadn't, you know, done enough to kill it yet, and then I perfectly placed that freeze. I waited until I got the perfect spot to get the Princess Tower, the Inferno Dragon, and the archers all in the freeze. And so even though my balloon had almost no health left, it was able to wreak havoc. And then I cloned it, and then both the balloons were able to wreak even more havoc, and his tower just disappeared. And that's GG. And the game ended within a few seconds. And that's why I have 20 replays, because we're already through half of them, and I'm just getting done talking about the cards. So freeze. Save your freeze for perfect timing and perfect placement. You don't want to just use it on the Princess Tower, because you want to shut down as much of their stuff as you can. Of course, if you feel like they don't have anything to counter it, or you know they don't have anything to counter it, go ahead and use it. Try to hit as many units as you can with it. As you see there, I not only hit the Princess Tower, I also hit the Wizard and the Furnace with the freeze. It doesn't do any damage, so you don't have to worry about accidentally hitting the King Tower, thus activating them. Now I play defense on the left here. I'm going in for the balloon to counter push on the right, and if it just touches the tower at this point, it's GG for me. I mean for him. But He places down his furnace. He laughs at me. I don't blame him. The crying face is a little bit overkill, but hey, that's alright. It's just a game. For all I know, he's a 13-year-old kid that's watching my videos, right? Okay, moving on to the next one. We're on number 13. 13, lucky number 13. I know it's unlucky for a lot of people, but it's one of my favorite numbers, and I really like it. So lucky for me. Alright, let's see how I do this from now on, now that we've talked about all the cards. I guess you could replace freeze with another, like, spell, like a poison or something. I just feel like it really takes away from this deck if you take that out. That's like a major part of it. So I wouldn't swap it out with much. Unless you don't have it, then, you know, just fill in whatever you got. You know, be creative, have some fun with something that you think would be good with this deck. Something that synergizes with clone, right? Alright. So not only does the balloon synergize with clone, as I mentioned, the ice spirit and the lumberjack also synergize with clone very well. The lumberjack and the ice spirit have death rattle effects. Look at that clone, and his tower's gone. So the lumberjack, if you clone the lumberjack and then your enemy does some sort of like AoE, right? You know, something to blow up your clones and instantly kill them, like a zap or something like that. Alright, we're on 14. Then, you know, the clone will just instantly die, right? But the death rattle will still trigger. And it'll be a lower level than your main unit, than the non-cloned unit. But for some death rattles, that doesn't matter. The lumberjack's going to drop his rage spell no matter what. And I believe it's the same level, unless I'm mistaken, with the clone spell, because of how it scales out and everything. So the clone's rage will be just as good, and if it's not just as good, it's almost just as good as the regular lumberjack's rage. So if they zap or use any sort of an AoE to take out all your clone's lumberjack will die and instantly drop his rage, and that'll trigger and activate all of your units so that they will all have rage around it, including your original lumberjack if he is still alive. Alright, so on here I play some defense. I gotta defend on the left here. I'm a little bit worried. Ooh, that doesn't look good for me. Oh man, so I use freeze defensively just because I have like nothing left. I opt to use arrows just to take out his clone and his leftover lumberjack. I'm kind of going desperate here. Ooh, there's nothing I can do. He gives me a thumbs up. At least this guy's a little bit nicer, right? So you can see it took me a few tries to get this challenge done. But I did manage to get 9 wins. I believe I still got 2 losses, but hey, I got my 9 wins. That's not bad, right? So we're on number 15 here. Let's take a look. It looks like I might be starting a new one around here. I'll double check after this replay. Alright, so what do I do to start off? Ideally, your ideal hand, right, is to have your ice golem and your balloon in hand. And you just want to plop the ice golem at the bridge and the balloon to the right of it, or to the left of it, depending on which side you're on. To the right if you're on the right lane, to the left if you're on the left lane. Maybe somebody can correct me and tell me if it's better to plop it right on top of your ice golem rather than slightly to the right, but I think that that's the best spot for it, because I've heard that's the best spot for a hog as well. I think that the reason for that is because it's less likely to be distracted by a defensive tower. Now, if you see them place a golem like that guy did there, yeah, that was the first match 0 of this last run, my last run where I got the 9 wins. If you see them place a golem or something heavy like that, you know, because of my other video, right, where I talk about elixir trades and about countering heavy decks with cycled decks, that you can counter push in the other lane. So he put the golem in the left lane, and I just instantly placed my offensive stuff in the right lane and blew him up. Because he didn't have any elixir to counter. He used it all on his golem. And even if he did, he probably wouldn't have quite enough to counter me fully. Now look at that freeze. I hit everything with the freeze. The lumberjack's chopping away. I let the balloon get 1 hit off, and then I get just enough elixir for the clone. I clone the balloon and everything. I opt to use the arrows there just to do some damage. He gives me a GG already. So let's get back to starting hands. You want the ice golem and the balloon. Ideally, you would also have the lumberjack. For early plays, if you don't have those, I would cycle out the ice spirit, the mega minion, or the lumberjack in the very back. You don't usually want to play a balloon by itself unless you see a good opportunity. Ooh, there's the doggy. My roommate just adopted the dog, so if you hear some barking, that's why. So you don't usually want to play them without anything, right? Play him, excuse me, the balloon without anything, without any support. But if you see a good opportunity because your opponent doesn't have elixir or much elixir, and you know that because they invested a lot of elixir in the opposite lane, then you can plop a balloon down by itself. Alrighty. you don't want to waste your freeze or your clone unless the balloon is there, right? That's the main reason for the freeze and the clone, when it's there on their princess tower, on the enemy princess tower. And it goes, well, it doesn't go without saying, but as a reminder, you just need that one tower to win these matches, to win one match in this challenge. So if you catch them off guard and just blow up their tower, it's GG for them. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is a slightly longer match. He does a pretty good job of playing defense. I think I eventually get him. But let's take a look. Oh, I was wrong. There's another one at some point that's a little bit longer. As you can see, my balloon made it across. He put down his golem, which means he spent 8 elixir. So even though I was playing in the same lane, right? Oh, here's a loss in this next one. Even though I was playing in the same lane, my balloon just flew right over his golem. His minion horde didn't have enough time to kill my balloon before it touched down on the enemy tower and just blew it up, because it only had 300 health left, and the balloon does a ton of damage. We should double check exactly how much damage it does at tournament standard level at some point. You can always check by just clicking on the card in the card list, and then there's a little show tournament standard level button, and you just hold that down. It'll show you the exact amount of damage that it does. And another quick tip, in game you can always tap or click, depending on what device you're using, and hold over a card that's in your hand, and it'll tell you exactly how much damage it does with its auto attacks, and it'll also show you the death damage, if I'm not mistaken, if it does have some death damage, and it'll also show you the unit's health. Now that's a great tip for using spells, because it'll show you exactly how much damage your spells will do to the enemy tower. It'll have 2 numbers for spells. One is the unit damage that it does to units, because spells all do less damage to towers than they do to units. And the other is the tower damage. So if you're like, they've got like 400 health left, is that enough for a rocket to kill it? You can tap and hold your rocket, and it'll show you it does like over 400 damage, and you know that'll be enough to kill it. But look at these replays. A lot of them I'm just plowing through by placing that balloon and that ice golem down, and then if I have to, and if I have enough elixir, I usually do, right? Then I'll go ahead and freeze and clone. Alright, let's run through these last few replays, and I'm excited to show my last win, because I was all pumped up. I do a lot of these tournaments and challenges when I'm at the gym. I do my cardio first and run the treadmill, and then I do some of these challenges or try to push ladder or something. And I think that's sometimes when I play best, because my blood's pumping and everything, and I really get into the game. So that's when I actually did my 5th run after I was doing that, or while I was doing that rather, because earlier in the day I was just doing it while I was hanging out, and I wasn't running or anything. And it allowed me to get my challenge done and completed. I got my 9 wins. Maybe that had nothing to do with it, right? But hey, who knows? Maybe it'll work out for you as well. Alright. Yeah, that was the last one we did. Yep. I just got my 9 wins. You can see me saying heck yeah. Actually, I say hell yeah. Alright. Let's jump into the next replay. So, what do I do here? I got an awesome starting hand because I got my cycle cards. Actually, it's not that great because I got the balloon nowhere in sight. I don't have him in my 5th card. He's not my 6th card. He's not my 7th card. He is my 8th card. So that's not very good. But I cycle everything else out. I plop the Lumberjack down behind the Ice Golem, which works really well. And then I put the balloon in, and it's all running up there. And if the balloon touches the enemy tower, then you're like, oh man, I might win right here in the next few seconds. And that's almost exactly what happens. I freeze everything. The clone gets off a shot. It dies and explodes. And then the balloon gets off 2 auto attacks. And that's all it takes to finish off the tower. Now look at the great placement of that freeze, right? I'm not trying to brag. I'm just trying to let you know that that is exactly how you want to do it, right? You want to try to freeze as many units as you can. So don't just like plop down your freeze sloppily, right? Tap and hold or click and hold and hover over where you're going to freeze. Make sure you get as many units in there as you can. As many of the enemy units, because you want that balloon to survive as long as it can. If it gets off 2 auto attacks, they're basically done for. Now he plopped down a Mega Knight, so that'll give me a good opportunity to push. I've got my clone in hand, I freeze everything, and then I clone the balloon. I already got 1 auto attack off. The clone and the balloon both get another off, and that's GG. Just 3 auto attacks, basically, 2 from the balloon, 1 from the clone, and that's it. Alright, 8th win. This is the second to the last win. That's kind of funny. I was expecting my last win to be really hard because I think that they match you up with other people that are at a similar point in the challenge. So like people that have made it that far to their 8th or 9th win. So I was expecting it to be really hard, but I think I actually kind of just plowed through him. Okay, here's a great starting hand. I don't know why he wasted his freeze though. Maybe he didn't have anything in hand. Bad arrows too. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to wrong move, but that was the wrong move because maybe he just had a bad hand. I'll have to double check that replay because that just wasn't effective. I mean, freezing my units in front of the Princess Tower, that'll just give the Princess Tower a couple more seconds to smack on it, and I got so much out that it easily soaks up that damage. Alright, this is my 9th win. Let's take a quick look at the balloon. See, level 4 balloon. This is what I'm talking about. If you tap and hold that show tournament standard level, you notice that all the numbers aren't changing because this balloon is level 4. It's at tournament standard. But if you scroll into your card list and take a look at that, then you can see that that button is there, and that'll allow you to see how much damage it does at tournament level standard, which at this case is 798, so about 800 damage and 272 death damage. Now the clone. At this level, tournament standard level, right? It clones epic cards to level 4. So it'll get just as much death damage off because it'll be the same level as your regular balloon. So that's good to know. Alright, let's watch this last win and then let's wrap up this video. So guys, try this deck out. Don't get discouraged if you lose a few. I definitely lost quite a few. It took me 5 tries to complete this run, but it's really fun because the matches are really quick. It's really fast paced. Some of them last like seriously like 10, 15, 20 seconds. And you've probably seen a few of those in my replays already. So the biggest thing that you want to keep in mind is don't be afraid to play aggressively. You want to play aggressively. You want to put that ice golem comboed with the balloon down as fast as you can as soon as you get it in your hand, like so. And then just freeze and clone before they have time to react, and that's GG. And I was so happy. I remember I smacked the treadmill, and I probably scared the people that were running next to me because I was, all excited. I got my 9th win, and I was planning on making a video about this and being like, oh yeah, I played this challenge, but I didn't, win the challenge. I didn't get my 9 wins. That would have been kind of lame, right? So, last thing, take a quick look at the balloon here. Let's find him an epic card. He's all the way down here. There's Balloon. He's at level 4, so I can't compare it in this particular account. But as another example, let's look at the Executioner. He's only level 1. For Balloon, it shows info. For Executioner, it shows upgrade. If you tap the first upgrade button, it's only to say that you can upgrade him, not that you're going to. The second one's the one that actually tells you that you want to upgrade him and you will upgrade him. So don't worry about tapping that to see the info. That just brings up the info screen as it would for a card that you have at its highest possible level. Then you tap and hold, the show tournament level standard button, and see all his stats changed. His hit points went from 760 to 1010, right? Everything scales up because it's showing him at the very top there. He goes from level 1 to level 4. So that's how you check tournament standard levels, and that's what your cards will all be in friendly battles. And that's also what they'll be in challenges anytime you do any of these challenges, classic challenges or grand challenges. Of course, if your cards are lower level than the standard, right, then they won't scale up. Whereas in friendly battles they will, in challenges they won't. See at the bottom there, cards are leveled down to or up to, in this case only down to common level 9, rare level 7, etc. So thank you so much for checking out this fun clone freeze balloon deck featuring Lumberjack and some flex cards with a little bit of cycle. I hope that you use this deck. Hope that you enjoy it. Thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you to all my subscribers. I'm definitely getting more and more, so I appreciate everybody that's taking the time to watch my videos, to subscribe, and to share them.